Hello everyone, here we are, Module 2, and in this particular module we're looking at our first feature film of the course. We looked at the short film last week, and I wanted to kind of jump into something that wasn't so far back in film history as our first feature film. So this week we're looking at a film. It's a 2008 British film called Slumdog Millionaire. I figured this would give us something to look at that's a little bit more familiar to us. So pulling out the pieces and analyzing the elements will be something that's a little bit easier to do for us. Next week, we do actually jump into something that goes further back into film history for the first time. In this film, it is my opinion that all 5 elements work really well individually, but even take a step further and work really well together to enhance the storytelling of this particular story in general, right? So this movie goes beyond just standard cinema and makes its way into art, in my opinion, okay? This was a box office success in 2008, as well as a critically acclaimed film. It won awards all over the world, and it definitely took home the most prestigious hardware that we offer, the Academy Awards in the United States. It won for Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best Original Score, Best Sound Mixing, Best Film Editing, and Best Sound Editing. So basically it took home all the awards for all the areas of cinema that we're analyzing over the course of this class. So I thought, again, it was a great place to start. I think you're going to enjoy the film because it's a really fun watch. We usually start with talking about kind of directing and writing. That's kind of the first place we go. And in this particular movie, we talk about how the director, well, in general, we talk about how the director interprets the written word and turns it into a visual story. And in this particular movie, Danny Boyle, the director, was not the writer, different person. In fact, this screenplay is an adaptation of a 2005 book called Q&A. Now, it's a loose adaptation, but it's still an adaptation, and a different screenwriter wrote it, and then Danny Boyle got it and turned it into the movie that we get to watch, okay? This particular film is not a traditional story. It's a non-linear story, so we bounce around in history and look at different time periods at different times as we make our way through the story, and that all leads us to the end of the film, okay? So you're not going to see a traditional story structure in this particular movie. It takes place basically on a game show, and each kind of question that gets asked the contestant, our young lead actor, Jamal, that leads them to a memory that either guides them to the correct answer or not the correct answer, and you can kind of watch the film and figure all that out as you go. And so that's kind of how we get taken through this story in general, okay? There's a lot of quality themes. Most films will have kind of a theme or an underlining kind of story there, right? And in this particular movie, the themes are strong. There's a theme of love, right? Does love conquer all, or is love something worth fighting for? That's something that we're looking at, right? Classism and the haves and the have-nots. You're going to see a lot of that play out in this particular movie. So that's a theme that runs strong here in the United States as well. It runs all over the world. And again, this is a British film, but it takes place in India. So I think the cities that we basically hit in the movie are Mumbai and Bombay are the 2 major cities. And you're going to see that they're dealing with classism and class structure in their particular country as well. We also talk a lot about, or we deal with the theme of fate in this particular movie. Is our fate written and we're just kind of living our lives to lead us to this one spot, or do we actually get to decide by the choices that we make, right? So that's something that they kind of explore in this film as well. So interesting themes that, again, we're going to explore and we're going to talk a little bit more about as we make our way through this lecture. Danny Boyle assembled a great production team to put together a fantastic kind of design of this world that we kind of dive into as we watch this picture, right? We're going to be talking about camera placement and camera movement. We're going to talk a lot about color and texture and tone. It all creates this vibrant world that we get to see in this foreign land. Again, Danny Boyle was the director. The DP was a guy named Anthony Dodd Mantle, and the production designer was a guy named Mark Digby. And those were the key team members that kind of put this visual world together for us. When when you watch the film, anytime you watch a film, not only are you dealing with the themes and things like that, but you're also looking for things that are like visual metaphors and symbols or motifs that are running through the storyline, just like you can do in literature. Okay, and in this particular film, one of the visual motifs that runs through the film is the color yellow. Now, the color yellow is meant to kind of elicit the idea of prosperity and happiness and brightness and sunshine and just all things good, right? And so that's kind of how this film uses that color yellow. And all throughout the film, you're going to see yellow lighting, yellow set pieces and production design being played out. But one of the major places that you see it is with the female character, the female lead. Her name is Latika, and you will see her in yellow a lot. The first time we really get introduced to her and we kind of get to know her a little bit, she'll be bathed in some yellow light. And we see her in different yellow attire throughout the movie. In our next slide, you're going to see some different clips, and we'll talk about those as we go through them. Another kind of symbol that you see in this particular movie, money and who has it and who doesn't, becomes kind of a major thing in this particular this particular film. And in one of the scenes, there's an American tourist, and he's watching this one character get beaten up for something that he did, and he wants to help, and he thinks the only way that he can help is just by giving them money, right? Like that takes care of everything. If you just pay it off, you've solved all the problems, right? And so that's actually pretty symbolic, that everybody thinks that kind of the American way, that you could just pay somebody off and it's going to solve all your problems, but it doesn't always work. And that's kind of a symbol they want you to understand. And then that $100 bill that the kid gets comes back later on in a different way. It's not exactly the same $100 bill, but it comes back in a major way later on, and you'll kind of see that play out as well. But that American tourist scene can kind of skim over it as you watch the movie, but pay attention to it because it's important to kind of the whole layout of the film. Okay, so that's something to look for. And then the other one is Latika's scar. You can see on this bottom frame where there's two characters in the frame, there's a scar on her face. That scar is a symbol later in the movie, right? It's a symbol of all the pain and struggle and suffering that she goes through in this particular movie, and the fact that he's willing to kind of forget about all that. He just wants to take care of her. So look for that symbol as well. So all important things in a movie is to be able to pick out these metaphors and these symbols and these motifs that are running through. Another motif that you can kind of see early on in the movie, and it plays out, is the whole idea of the Three Musketeers, right? Latika makes the third musketeer. There's two brothers, and then they kind of latch onto her, and they're the Three Musketeers. And you'll kind of see that brought up a few times and see how it plays out and how it plays a major role in even the total outcome of the film, right? So look for that as well as a running motif through the picture. So here we're going to look at a few clips, and I want you to pay close attention to what's going on in these clips. It's really just focusing on Latika being in yellow and how many times we're going to see it. In this first clip, it's when we first see Latika, or the first time we realize she's a major player here. She's just bathed in yellow light. She's not actually wearing yellow. The second shot here is her in a yellow dress, and a yellow bus pulls up into frame. And this yellow bus seems like an object of hope early on, and then you find out later that it's just false hope. But she's also in yellow, which is very important. And then the next shot here is a very small shot of yellow on the wall. So there's no one's wearing yellow. Look in the back. On the back wall, there's going to be a little yellow frame. That's just a shot that symbolizes how there's very little hope going on in this particular scene. And then finally, this last shot is Latika in a yellow blouse. This scene's got a lot of hope. It starts off very hopeful, but again, she's like the shining light for him, and he's just trying to be with her and do whatever he can to get to her. So in this particular scene, you see her wearing a yellow blouse.